What are they supposed to tie their horses to, though? The dead shrubs?
Indy. What are they doing? Indiana.
God damn it, kid. We get it already. That's young Indiana Jones.
Just tell Mr. Havelock that there are men living in the caves. Have him bring the sheriff.
How far away is the sheriff, though? He's not, like, right nearby.
Right. Run back, Mr. Havelock, the sheriff.
Fedora and his crew can't hear this kid loudly repeating what Indiana just said.
He's got our thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest piece of dialogue ever written. He's got our thing. Vehicles that definitely should have been closer to the cave entrance in the first place and should have clued the Boy Scouts that other people were already here magically show up from some hidden place when Fedora whistles for them. And wait, the bad guys had a truck waiting back where Indy's horse was? I am obligated to send this car driving over this terrain without incident.
Come on, get him!
Unnecessary orders. What is this crawlable and reinforced upper deck rail thing here? I assume the answer will be for feeding the dangerous animals, but why can't they just throw food in from the roof of the car or from a window opening on the side? Why should they have to maybe fall into one of these pits just so the animals can eat? Jeez, this whole Boy Scout adventure is Indiana Jones and the kingdom of the character scroll. All facets of his origin story get found here. His whip, the scar on his chin, his fear of snakes, and ultimately his fedora hat. You'd think building all the tiny facets of your character would take a lifetime. For Indy, it was running around on a circus train. Somehow Indy hides in this coffin in the magic car of the train, and that ends up with him running away from the train. There's no way this magic box prop is designed to work with the floor while inside a train car in transit. So however it works to make the magician invisible, it can't even theoretically send him outside the train entirely. At least not in a way where he's not also run over by said train. This train is moving slow enough, and that cross is worth enough money that some or all of these thieves should be jumping off the train right now to pursue.
I brought the sheriff.
But he didn't bring the deputy. Also, how did Herman know to come back to the Jones residence? Wasn't he supposed to bring people back to the mountain? Did news of the circus train get back that quickly? What's really weird is the bad guys, I guess, somehow got to the sheriff at the same time as Herman and managed to change the narrative, and God knows what happened to the other Boy Scouts and their leader. So Indy's signature hat look came from a thief who bought out the local cops to steal back a cross teen Indy took from him? That's disappointing. This asshole grabs the cross and is entirely too happy about getting it when he's still got bad guys to contend with on a boat in the middle of the goddamn ocean during a storm. After this huge explosion, a magical life raft shows up right next to Indy so that he can luck his way into the next scene. Who found him in the middle of the ocean? Well, very few people know this, but it was the RMS Carpathia.
Percus, I did it.
You got it.
Yes, I wanted to teach a class first before bringing you this monumental discovery. Didn't have time to do it beforehand. Just got off the Carpathia 15 minutes before the morning bell. Indiana kept the cross of Coronado in a f***ing unlocked drawer the whole time instead of a safe. He's been through entirely too much shit over this cross just to leave it exposed like that. The movie vastly overestimates Dr. Jones' popularity. Why the hell would so many people be eager to talk to him? Did someone time travel to 1989 to find films of his exploits? This office is honestly laughable. He has a huge water heater behind him, which is supposed to be a joke about how little the university respects his craft despite his apparently insane popularity. But then it's clear this is also the main storage facility for all the artifacts he's found. And storing old things near water is a recipe for disaster. But the film is only interested in advancing the Dr. Jones has so many artifacts plot lines, so you can eat it.
I know who you are, Mr. Donovan. Your contributions to the museum over the years have been extremely generous.
Makes you wonder then why he needed to send his men, who surrounded him like he had no choice but to come see their boss a minute ago. Yes, we know Donovan is a bad guy, but seems like someone with his impeccable reputation could have simply made a f***ing phone call.
An old man's dream.
Every man's dream, including your father's, I believe.
By the way, your dad is missing. I won't tell you until the end of this scene. Anyway, you ever see that John Cleese movie about the Holy Grail? We are the knights who say knee, ha ha ha!
After the Grail was entrusted to Joseph of Arimathea, it disappeared and was lost for 1,000 years before it was found again by 3 knights.
Before it was found again is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Where, when, and how was that found again?
This is the manuscript in which the friar chronicled the knight's story.
Holy shit! There's an actual document of the night story of the Holy Grail, and it's not from some sort of bedtime story as Indy keeps derisively calling it? Where do you find that shit? Isn't the discovery of the document huge in itself? Indy doesn't even bother to ask about it.
It doesn't reveal the location of the Grail, I'm afraid, but the knight promised that 2 markers that had been left behind would.
So, once again, some dickheads decided to make the quest for a valuable object a dickish one. They left 2 markers with absolutely no context for how to find them in the first place, which makes you wonder if they even wanted other people to find them or why this knight bothered to tell the friar this story. The quest for the Grail is also going to involve passing 3 tests of faith, also dickish. Why go through all of this, ever? What's the end game? What did these knights get out of this personally or in their service to God?
We're only 1 step away.
A It's usually when the ground falls out from underneath your feet.
For quickening.
Why don't you try my father?
We already have. Your father is the man who's disappeared.
Oh, silly me. I should have mentioned this at the very beginning. Well, anyway, I'm definitely not a villain.
It's Dad's Grail diary. Why would he have sent this to me?
Good question. Since we find out later he sent it so the bad guys wouldn't get it, which you'd think he'd mention in a note somewhere instead of making Indy guess. Anyway, that probably wouldn't be a movie if he did, so yay, movie.
Do you believe the Grail actually exists?
The search for the cup of Christ is the search for the divine in all of us.
Classic example of not answering the question.
How will we recognize this Dr. Schneider when we see him?
Amazing that Donovan didn't tell them that Dr. Schneider was some hot lady. He played an early version of that game where people try to show you how sexist you are when they tell you the riddle of the son and his father who are badly injured and are sent to the hospital, where the doctor says they can't operate on the kid because he's my son, and you're so baffled because the father was clearly taken into surgery, but then you say, oh, I know, the kid has two dads. One is a doctor and the other is a clumsy f***. You almost made me say the mom was a doctor. Holy f***, how embarrassing would that have been?
Now, please excuse me. The library is closing in a few moments. I'll arrange for us to stay a little longer.
Is there any reason you didn't make these arrangements on the way in? Would he not find where to dig if you were still in the room? By the way, what the f**king is this map that Indiana's dad drew? What exactly was this supposed to do, other than tell people that these Roman numerals were important? Why wasn't it scrawled in the diary, instead of this scrap that he conveniently left behind? Love the scene where Indy climbs to the second story in order to be able to see an X on the floor that anyone on the first floor could have easily seen. Movie requires this librarian to be stupid for Indy's plan to work. Also, Indy isn't exactly timing this on purpose, so what was his plan if security or police came in? This is a great comedy bit, and it makes us forget about what a problem this would be, but guess what, f***ers? I created a YouTube channel 23 years after this movie was made, so I could totally ignore that. 3 big taps with a metal stand made from weak-ass metal is all it takes to open up this stone floor. This is the Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword, who I guess have a fire station-style headquarters here in this library in case they get word that someone is f***ing with the X on the floor. I'd love to know how they got informed of this, and what their hours are like. Brody sits here looking down the hole and hears people coming, but does absolutely nothing. You'd think they'd want to cover up the fact that they broke through the floor a minute ago and at least put the tile back in and put a book over the hole and maybe even use the stanchions to block it off, but apparently they were in no way concerned about getting caught. I guess after Stamper Guy didn't catch them earlier, their concern was officially over.
What's this one?
The Ark of the Covenant.
I'm surprised there isn't a Temple of Doom drawn somewhere in these catacombs. I like how Indy creates a torch from a skeleton arm, some clothing, and a lighter, and then when we see the torch in action, it doesn't appear to be adding much more light than the movie's lighting already provides. Instead of just having her take off her heels, movie decides to throw her over the strong man's shoulder, ass facing the camera, because this movie is for the manly men. Why would an entire left side of a shield be covered in dust when the other side is mostly clean? In this dark-ass tomb filled with petroleum, Indy is able to see down here as if there are natural lights down here, and it's just plain water. Also, this is all we see that is supposed to prove that Indy found a way out of here. There's almost no way there's an exit. We're supposed to believe this somehow connects with a sewer tunnel later. Why are these assholes running out of the building like they know where Indy and Elsa went? They burned the river of petroleum, and there's no way they could have walked down to confirm whether they were dead or not, or that they found a magic sewer connection down in the tube.
Are you crazy? Don't go between them!
Go between them, are you crazy?
Hilarious miscommunication, but what the f*** was Elsa doing? If she thought going in between them was crazy, then why was she aiming the boat that way? While one of the boats chasing them was smart enough to go around these two converging ships, the people driving this boat inexplicably go between them.
Ask yourself, why do you seek the cup of Christ?
Because the people who last had it wrote down instructions on how to find it.
Marcus, you remember what the Grail tablet said?
You talk about the Grail tablet as if an etching of it isn't sitting right in front of you. You don't have to remember what it said. It's right there. This room is trashed. He was literally across the hall and would definitely have heard this happening.
Since I met you, I've nearly been incinerated, drowned, shot at, and chopped into fish bait.
Yes, this is true, but wouldn't all those things have happened anyway if Indy's dad had put the scrap of paper with the Roman numerals on it inside the Grail diary? I thought an archaeologist knew the difference between correlation and causation.
I'm gonna continue to do things the way I think they should be done.
Don't worry, kids. It's okay, because she ends up sleeping with him. Also, since Elsa is an antagonist and now knows where the diary is and she's about to do something very James Bondian and sleep with Indy to strengthen trust, why isn't she able to just steal it in the middle of the night and leave before Indy notices? I think it's interesting that to get to Salzburg on the Austrian-German border, they actually had to cross into Germany briefly and then back into Austria. What's that? Really? Huh. Well, folks, I'm being told that it's not actually very interesting. Apologies. Indy knocks the butler out cold with a single backhanded punch. Why the f*** does he need a whip or a gun when he's this f***ing strong? I wonder why they didn't spring for the really big map.
Alexandra, of course.
on the pilgrim trail from the Eastern Empire.
It sounds like you could have figured out where the Grail was by the process of elimination. I mean, I'd want to know for a fact what city to start from before going on a journey too, but someone who's been obsessed with the Grail for this long might have deduced this without the second marker. What the hell took these guys so long? Did they read the script?
What? Trust me.
Henry very annoyingly doesn't tell Indy why he knows this for a fact, hoping that trust decides this. I can't believe I've never noticed this random hair, probably Elsa's, stuck in Indy's chin stubble. Now I will never not see it.
This book contained a map with no names.
I'll tell you what's really unbelievable is how Elsa didn't spy camera the out of this diary during the time she spent with Henry. I'm sure by this point the Nazis had heard of Walter Zapp. Okay, so this ramp is a trick that goes into a truck instead of a building, but I have questions. How did they know that Brody and Sala would shake off the two men in the black suits? How did they know the pair would then run this direction and absolutely for certain choose this ramp as the escape option? Also, why were 2 bowls of peppers holding this door down? This is a f***ing waste of delicious peppers. Okay, so cool. They decided not to kill the Joneses just in case they can't get what they need from Brody. But why do they keep them tied up in a room like this with no guards? Do they really think that is an inescapable situation? Everything in this room has been doused in vodka. How the f*** did the Joneses, especially the older one, get up there? I mean, I'm happy they found a way, but I'm just happier to call it bullshit.
Not going on the boat!
Pretty f***ing obvious no one is on that boat, but sure, send this entire squad to go after it. Could they just not wait until the bad guys were on the boat and in the water first? This misdirection is barely a misdirection at all. This dude waited way too long to attempt to shoot. What tactical advantage is he getting here with this goof-ass wheelie land on the back of their thing with your front wheel thing? Okay, get prepared for some hilarity as Indy throws this pole into the motorcycle wheel. In the next shot, we can clearly see the dummy they rigged for this with an explosive charge that sends the dummy flying. And this amazing shot of the dummy practically looking down at the Joneses as if to say, F my life.
You're going the wrong way. We have to get to Berlin. Brody's this way.
So they are currently on the Austrian-German border, and the sign next to them shows Berlin going one way and Venice going the other. As far as Indy knows, Brody is in Iskender, which is in what we moderns call Turkey. Surely he's not suggesting that they need to drive the motorcycle to Turkey from here. Also, they stop on the side of the road and literally turn off the bike to have a chat, as though none of the dudes that were chasing them will keep chasing them, or no other guards will ever show up in pursuit. You guys are wanted dead by the main f***ing guy in that outfit.
But I found the clues that will safely take us through in the Chronicles of St. Anselm.
Well, what are they?
I wrote them down in my diary so that I wouldn't have to remember.
Henry Jones's character is that he's so obsessed with finding the Grail that he's spent a lifetime studying it, practically neglecting fatherhood to do so. I guarantee he didn't write down the clues only to never look at them again, but I guess it's off to Berlin for f***'s sake.
The armies of darkness will march all over the face of the earth.
Doesn't the Grail just, keep you young? I don't think you can clone people with it, for instance. And I don't think it helps if you get blown up by a bomb or a grenade. I guess I'm struggling to see how the thing would create an unbeatable army of the damned. Hey, what gives? Someone took a recent American news clip and inserted it into this 80s action-adventure film. This is something Spielberg is extremely good at, and that's using subtle camera placement and movement to give you the whole deal without forcing unneeded dialogue. We know that Indy has knocked out a guard, hit in the body, and stolen his uniform to blend in, and the camera just started in the right place and gently lifted to the next right place. If this was a Marvel movie, they not only would have felt compelled to show us the guard being knocked out, but they'd also cut it to death. But also, how did they cross the border into Germany and deep into Berlin without getting caught? A middle-aged guy wearing a fedora and an old guy driving around on a motorcycle with a sidecar shouldn't be that hard to radio in. She's crying at the burning of the books because, you see, she's one of the good ones.
All I have to do is squeeze.
All I have to do is scream.
Not if you're getting strangled, Elsa. Besides, with all the noise and shit, I doubt you would be heard anyway. Why did the Jones boys decide to take a blimp out of Germany? They drove there. Why not drive back? And if you're worried about roadblocks, then wouldn't those same authorities have blimp blocks in place as well? The no-ticket scene is classic, and I'm glad Indy kicked Vogel's ass off the blimp. But I remember him being accompanied by another person who was helping him out, and he never appears again. Wouldn't Vogel be discovered and the blimp flight grounded until he sorted this out? Why did they dump all the luggage out here and never load it up into the Zeppelin?
It's disgraceful. You're old enough to be her grandfather.
Dude, you're like 47. Twice her age. And if stuff I've read about your relationship with Marion Ravenwood is true, you've never been too concerned with age when it comes to sex and dating. He's not in the shot, but Tom Cruise actually learned how to fly a real World War II era biplane for this movie. Damn, I knew this guy was distracted by the plane flying overhead, but I didn't realize he was so distracted that he could miss 2 people jumping into his car before the car even started. Look, movie, you can't show me the bullets getting this close to the car and in the next 2 seconds tell me that the car didn't get hit by bullets. This could be close! Now, how did you know there was a tunnel around that corner? The crash plane is going down the exact middle of the tunnel, and yet Indy can just pull his car to the side and allow it to pass by like there's that kind of room in here. Wait, why is that gun empty? I'm pretty sure he hasn't fired it all movie. Does this mean it was empty when he had it drawn back when they snuck into the castle? Pappy Jones is addicted to birds. While Indy admires his bird-killing dad from afar, the next question should be, how the f*** are they going to get back to civilization so they can get to Iskenderun and catch up with Donovan? All their vehicles are dead and they are in the middle of nowhere. The movie will cut to Donovan asking permission from the powers that be to search for the Grail, and with the snap of the editor's fingers, Indy and Henry are riding with Sala at the very city they need to be, as if they literally traveled by map like the Muppets did.
Now they have the map, and in this sort of race, there's no silver medal for finishing second.
Yes, but they don't have any idea about the 3 challenges they're going to face. You could technically just let them all die trying to get the Grail. I guess you still have to save Brody, but they clearly can't get the Grail without the diary. You've had God knows how many hours to plan for this. And your best idea is, well, maybe we can beat them to the location before they get there. Without any explanation, Indy, Henry, and Sala got to this point before Donovan. This is an Atlanta Falcons versus New England Patriots in the Super Bowl kind of collapse. Also, this motherfucker is too smart to be this dumb. Also, they cannot see the vehicle up on the ridge behind Indy, and yet later the bad guy says,
In this sun, without transportation, they're as good as dead.
so how the did they know there was a car up there, and how the hell did they know they had destroyed it? I just don't understand the purpose of this Brotherhood of the Cruciform Sword. They're dedicated to protecting the Grail, sure, but why? Do they not know what kind of shit you have to go through to get it? The 3 challenges and the secret 4th one are the defense. People are allowed to do this. The Grail Knights wouldn't have set this up otherwise. Maybe they don't know about the challenges, but that raises even more questions. The Wilhelm line has been protecting the Holy Grail for 1,000 years. Man, these guys had the high ground and it didn't do shit to help them. Why is the fake blood in this movie so bad?
Genius of the restoration.
8-hour resuscitation.
Movie has time for this, even though Henry and Brody clearly don't have time for this.
Jones is getting away!
I think not, Herr Donovan.
Not that Jones, the other Jones!
Wait, did Donovan know Indy was getting away before he entered the frame? The horses were not far behind this tank. And isn't Donovan the de facto leader? Can't he just order the other underlings to go after Jones without sticking his head down in a tank to summon Vogel? Furthermore, Indy is riding a horse while leading 3 others. And while catching him with the cars is the obvious play, they decide to let the slow, cumbersome tank lead. Also, why can't Donovan just yell to Indy, "We have your father, Dr. Jones," and stop this right now? They have all the leverage in this scene, not Indy. As we see Indy riding his horse out of view of the tank, all the people in the cars just let him ride past without as much as taking a shot. I mean, we're supposed to be all happy because the tank turns right into this Jeep or whatever, but did they not see Indy riding right past them? Does anyone want to aim a gun? Indy puts so much stock in this working that he willingly puts himself in the line of fire in a minute. And yeah, of course it works, but that's not the fucking point. F*** yourself straight to Mars if you're saying they can hear each other. Apparently, the guy guarding Indy's dad has absolutely no interest in what's going on just above him and completely misses a whole-ass gun getting dropped within Henry's reach. Mad Max, hurry slow. The ricocheting bullet kills the tank driver, who slumps onto the controls and causes the tank to veer strongly to the right, saving Indy's life. If not for the randomness of the math of ricocheting bullets, Indy dies here and now. Indy is so lucky he should quit archaeology and go into professional gambling. Why would this ancient architecture carved into a cavern wall be so pristine and undiscovered? Weird to me that there aren't any cars parked outside. Donovan and his crew didn't walk here, did they? There was plenty of space for their cars to drive through the canyon. Also, curious, why dismount 50 feet from the entrance when there's nothing to tie the horses to? Strange that this dude's head would just go tumbling this far backwards for maximum horror, especially since the first guy they sent also managed to lose his head, but it fell right next to his body. This guy casually gut shots Indy's dad to convince Indy to go do Grail shit, but he could easily have killed Pappy Indy here. I mean, he definitely probably killed him long term, because stomach wounds are notorious for bleeding out. But I mean, just by how casually he hip-fired that weapon without aiming, that's bad form.
The healing power of the Grail is the only thing that can save your father now. It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
The Grail keeps you young. The Grail heals all wounds. The Grail gets good grades. The Grail time travels and keeps your mom from being murdered. The Grail does all.
He's humble. Kneels before God.
Kneels! So he kneels and dodges the blade that would have cut off his head. But what is this asshole blade that comes from the ground? So does the penitent man kneel or stop, drop, and roll for God? Also, you not only have to solve the riddle of the kneeling, you have to time it perfectly. And that's just not sporting whatsoever. This riddle is hard unless you see two decapitated guys right in front of you. I say Indy cheated by virtue of outside information.
J?
Somehow, Indy is able to step on the incorrect J letter and survive and still be able to continue the quest. This is a fairly dumb challenge, all told. It's way more forgiving than the first challenge. This is a spelling bee with mulligans. Why didn't the booby trap makers anticipate the evil people who would follow the puzzle solvers into the vault of awesome? The forced perspective of this optical illusion bridge is pretty neat, but the Grail Knights are total dicks for not making this wider and less nopey. I know we're supposed to laugh at the knight who is so old that he can't do his job anymore, but why the f*** is someone who passes the 3 tests subject to this bullshit? I've said it once, and I'll say it again. If you don't want people taking your treasure, then don't leave roadmaps to it. Even vague, nearly impossible to solve roadmaps.
Knew you would come.
Really? Why did you make so many booby traps then?
Pass it to you who vanquished.
He didn't vanquish you, you're just really f***ing old.
But as the true Grail will bring you life, false Grail will take it from you.
I'm completely down with a Grail that belonged to Jesus Christ giving you renewed life, but I'm not down with a false Grail ending it. Anything like that would need to be set up by the Grail Knights, aka not warlocks. They created 3 practical challenges for this quest. Maybe they laced all the false Grails with a poison that instantly ages you, but I think the movie wants us to believe it's some punishment brought by God, which makes no sense either. According to this movie, the Grail was found by these knights 1,000 years after Joseph of Arimathea lost it. There was no particular quest attached to it. Anyone who found it could use it, but these assholes decided, let's make a game, an impossible game, nay, an impossible game where even if you do nearly everything right, we'll kill your ass if you can't pick the right Grail out of a lineup. It's very Christian of us.
He chose poorly.
Well, she chose poorly. Donovan just went with it, but God lived by the immortal words of Rush. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
That's the cup of a carpenter.
This is the only cup in the whole place that isn't made of some sort of precious metal. I'm kind of surprised these jerkwad knights didn't throw in 5 other Grails that could have been made by a carpenter. I'm surprised the Grail Knight didn't run over and throw a bunch of exact replicas up in the air while knocking the real Grail out of Indy's hands. Feel free to make a guess, jerk off.
The Grail cannot pass beyond the Great Seal. That is the boundary and the price of immortality.
Besides, why should there be any proof of God anywhere? How would that help the world? Attracting followers through faith alone has worked so well so far. Why does Indy even have to pour the water on the bullet wound? Why didn't the drinking heal it? And holy shit, what a waste of magical water. Everybody except the bad guys should have had a drink. The Grail still has water in it, despite having been completely emptied by Wastiana Jones just a moment ago.
It's ours, Indy. Yours and mine.
Elsa's not a good person, no matter how much the movie tried to redeem her since the moment they left Castle Grayskull. But considering the choices made with her character in the latter half, I find it incredibly disorienting that she turns into Grail Gollum at the end. How do you booby trap an underground cave to have an earthquake based on someone triggering their trap? That shit makes me angry. Indy absolutely throws himself after Elsa, even though he only recently met her. He seems willing to die to save her. I would have removed every sin if the Grail Knight flipped him off instead.
What did you find, Dad?
Me, illumination.
Papa Jones is responsible for all those terrible Despicable Me movies.
We named the dog Indiana.
You are named after the dog.
The movie comes up with the terrible origin story for Indy's name that rivals the terrible origin story for Nick Fury's Scar.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
It's not that kind of duty.
So the killer flees on horseback with the girl, the cops after them on a motorcycle. And it's like a battle between motors and horses, like technology versus horse.
Left Budapest early this morning. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east.
Do you intend to leave us standing on the doorstep all day with drenched?
There'll be whales here.
Oh, what? God, drop the thing!
Drop the thing!
Can't you remember?
I found a cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost it.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the mall. That's the Chicago way.
Now they have the map. And in this sort of race,
Winners go home and the prom queen.
I have to go now as someone is staring at me through binoculars.